Yay, hello, hello, and welcome to this week Training Tuesday Live. We're magnet marketers. Our goal is always to help you become a magnet with your marketing versus being a bullhorn. And today we are diving in to what to consider before posting online in 2020. Kind of a recap. We talked about this in March, but now things have evolved. We need to discuss it even more and just let you know how you can avoid being tone deaf as a brand and really build those relationships through continuing posting online, but what to know before you do. So before we dive in, if we've not met before, hello. My name is Jessika Phillips with Now Marketing Group and the Relationship Marketing System. I'm an awesome co-host. He's Mike Gingerich. He's president of Digital Hill, the co-founder of the popular apps Waftio, Tabsite, and a published author extraordinaire. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, doing well. And wow, it's July, right? And here we are, but good to be back and talking.
Yeah. I just got back from vacation. So now, like as soon as you get back from like going anywhere and like kind of stepping away a little bit, it's kind of like, oh my God, okay, I need like a vacation after that to kind of get caught up, right? But yeah, it's July and July 2020, even saying the word vacation means something a little bit different this year than it did last year. And I think we can all agree as we look back at our like time hops, if you will, of what we posted a year ago or where we were a year ago, things look a lot different for us individually, as well as for brands. And this year has been a roller coaster to say the least. So I know you, Mike, like I have probably got a lot of questions still, or even if you're managing pages for clients and their social media, you're really kind of questioning, what do I even share online? How do I show up and respond? How am I supposed to have, this marketing that can be effective to help us build a brand when all of this is going on in the world? How do we even show up? Are you getting a lot of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think definitely feeling it, but also just as I'm on social media, I know that cringe factor when I see a business. I'm just like, no, and you have that gut check that like, that's not helpful, or that's not the right time for that type of thing. So I'm seeing those things. I think that we have to be cognizant, sensitive to kind of a bigger picture. I mean, which is always just important to us. That's an aspect of relationship marketing. How is the people you're trying to reach feel, but then just the next step beyond that, just how is what's happening in the community, the world, nation context beyond that does have a bearing on how you communicate and what and when.
That's what we should have called this, like how to avoid the cringe factor as a brand when you're showing up online. Because I mean, we don't want you to completely go silent. So what we're really going to break down is how can you still show up, avoid that cringe factor, but also still participate. And one thing that, there's always a silver lining to everything going on. And while 2020 has seemed like a crazy, stressful year, it's also brought to light many areas where we can show up in a more intentional way and really reap the benefits of going through some of that stuff, the hard stuff that can really help us show up as a brand. And it's really kind of forced, if you will, relationship marketing for brands that really want to strive and really build the relationships and the rapport with the customers so they don't show up cringe-worthy or, they don't show up inauthentic, but also come at it from a perspective of really getting to the heart of who they are as a brand and a company, as well as understanding more of who their audience is. And when I say by audience, it's not just their customers, clients, whatever, but also their community, who their supporters are, who they're working with, and really get a level deeper, if you will, versus like the surface level kind of sales transactions. And that's what I really want to break down today is the do's, the don'ts, if you will, but using some examples along the way so everybody can kind of see where we're coming from, if you will.
Yes, no, absolutely. And so I think that, I mean, we've just had, it is a year unlike anything that I can recall, and I think that, that, is noteworthy in itself, but it's a educational time period, but it is a time where businesses do need to kind of stop and check and, evaluate, sometimes make some adjustments and how, what, all those kind of pieces there. So
Yeah. And that's a good word,
Yeah.
honestly, like get involved. If you haven't been, it is time to evaluate. So we don't want to regurgitate everything that has been said before. Some of this stuff is going to seem like common sense, but honestly, like evaluating it is the big summary, right? Like evaluating what is being said out there. What marketing messages have you put out before that may need to be looked at again, right? Like things that, you have on your website, on your social, that could be now looked at as very tone deaf or even unintentional things that really can turn some people off. So it is time for brands, if as you're getting into this, to really stop and pause and say, what do we have going out? Where are we showing up? What is our sentiment that we're really wanting to kind of have as our brand? And our first don't, if you will, is don't ignore everything that's going on. Don't just do nothing, but evaluate, don't ignore.
Yep. But I think, you see a lot of this on the personal level, on social media. When you think of people saying, "Hey, you can't," silence or ignoring. From a personal standpoint, is not is speaking. It is not neutral. That type of thing. So you can't ignore, and that's so. I just put it that way. You can't ignore. You're going to need to take a look at it.
Yeah. So as we start with the don'ts, right? Like things to stop doing, then we'll get into like what you can do to really kind of make this work. So the first one's not ignoring. And the second one is don't just continue to use social. You're like, okay, well, I'm not going to participate in a conversation, which I don't feel like you have to necessarily just share everything that's out there. We will talk about what to do, but don't also just use your social and your online marketing to sell then, because that really, as you said, like cringeworthy, it comes across really strong when the only thing you're seeing coming from maybe a brand that you as an individual support a lot, and the only thing you're seeing from them is sales messages. You feel like they're not really understanding what you're going through. It feels very tone deaf, and it feels very like one side. They don't care. Honestly, it's just simply put, they don't care.
And I think brands need to be aware of the fact that when things are heightened, and if you're, again, we're talking about like social media marketing in particular with this. Okay, so the individual conversations are maybe going to be kind of ramped up on social media at that point in time. So remember, your brand is still, you're in that mix. I mean, if you're on Facebook or you're on Instagram and you're putting out a post, you're in the midst of whatever context is going on for people in their feeds, of which, not anywhere near all of them are business feeds. It's like they're seeing personal information. So they're going to be seeing information about all these the things that are going on in, the nation, the world, and then yours shouldn't stick out as just salesy. You said it, like that's tone deaf. That's what might have worked in a different context may not work at all in this context. So you got to be aware of the context.
Yes. It's not to say you can't sell, right? There's a time and a place. It's just saying don't only show up as salesy, pushy, really kind of all of these messaging in your face without showing up in a way that seems like you're supporting or there to add a value, help, right? Like that kind of thing, which we'll break down in a minute. The other don't with, and hopefully a lot of these are hopefully obvious, right? But we're bringing it up because it seems like there's still this question out there, and there's still these things that are coming up because let's face it, it's been since March, right? Like we went through COVID. Now it's, really in our whole environment, people are uneasy. And now it's, coming up with diversity and questions on how can we improve that, inclusion, and how can we really show up to make it a great place for everyone. So people are kind of getting restless. I get it, right? But so it's not to say you can't sell at all, because maybe your business is just reopened and you're trying to recoup, but just don't come off as salesy. The next one is don't come off also as uneducated and really just sharing any news that's out there, because it's easy for a brand to get really passionate about something and maybe you read something, or maybe you're just curious and you're hoping for something to come across a headline that you want to see. So you're sharing it online without educating yourself
Yeah.
or really considering the source.
Yep.
And as a brand, that is one of the worst things that you can do. Like,
Yep.
just don't.
If there is ever a time to consider what you are sharing or retweeting, it is now. So again, as you said, not just reading a headline, but considering the website it's coming from and their overall message, as well as just reading the entire article, just to make sure that if 80% of it is good and 20% of it is not going to be helpful, well, that 20% should dictate your response to whether you share that or not. That piece. Yeah.
Absolutely. Don't just read a headline and think you got the full story. There's so much, that's out there, and media makes money off of views, right? So some of it's going to be clickbait. A lot of it's going to be clickbait. And a lot of it's going to be to stir controversy, and it may be taken out of context. So just do your research first and really just go with your gut. But don't just share stuff out there, because what's put up online can now be deleted. Yes, you can delete it from your page, but somebody's seen it, somebody screenshotted it, and somebody shared it on to someone else. So you need to be very cautious of what's going out on your page, as well as what you're engaging with, because it's not just what you're pushing out on your page. Your team members and you as a maybe a solopreneur, what you're engaging with can also be seen. So you need to just really consider, again, the source, what you're getting information, and not passing along anything that could be fake news or detrimental to others. We've seen this quite a bit with brands online, and it's definitely not a thing to do, because people lose their trust in you. It's broken, and once they get that viewpoint of you, it's very hard to recoup that.
Absolutely.
The next one is really like kind of a summary of all of this, but it's like taking advantage of the situation, right? Like that is the most disgusting thing I think I've seen. It's like, hey, here's an herbal supplement to protect yourself from COVID, or hey, you're stuck in home, let's sell you some UV filters to kill out this, or whatever it is. Don't take advantage of the situation and of people. Like that's just shady. And if you are, that kind of brand to do it, that's going to do it, at least everybody's going to know now. But that's probably the most frustrating for me. And sometimes it's innocent, or you want to hope that it's innocent, that they're just trying to have some fun and, a play off of it, but it's not always received very well, I would say.
Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah. And there's just going to be things that are not going to be helpful, and there's going to be things that are just flat out bad moves, and that type of thing. Speaking of bad moves, I'll just, run down the trail on one here. Yeah. So one of the things that made headlines in the last couple of weeks was in NASCAR. Okay. So basically at this point in time, there's one black race car driver, Bubba Wallace. And so there was a rope noose found in his garage area. And so there was done, the FBI was involved and that type of thing. And ultimately they found out the rope had been there for a while. It wasn't, it wasn't specifically targeted at him. However, related to this was the bad move by a racetrack owner in North Carolina to try to sell rope called Bubba rope, and that's rightfully so. He was hammered on social media, and beyond, on media in general. But that's just when a time when we're talking about social justice, inequalities, difficulties that have occurred, all these types of some painful things, some difficult things, to try to make a buck off of that was very insensitive, and he tried to take advantage of the situation. But tone deaf is the nicest way to put it.
Yeah. tone deaf, also just, inconsiderate, insensitive, like, why? You have to know that it's just about, hopefully somebody would stop you if you come up with one of these ideas, but we're talking about it for a reason because people have been known to do this. And
Yeah.
it's also just checking things, right? Like, again, it goes back to evaluating, like we said at the very beginning, like looking at your website. Though, for example, if you are a restaurant and you had a buffet before and now buffets aren't allowed and all you're talking about is that your big benefit, right? Like, you need to evaluate and change it up. Right? Like, you need to not just your website, but your about sections on your page, or if you've sold something online before that you can't sell, just update it and evaluate it right now, and then have a conversation about it. So here's what you can do to kind of avoid this, and what you should be doing right now, and hopefully have been doing for the past couple months to really kind of still be participating, because as we said, this is the best year right now. It's kind of forced us into building relationships with our audience even more so, because we're all going through this together. One, two, that's what your community is looking for from you, as well as, with many businesses that have been shut down, this is your one opportunity to still have those conversations. But the conversations come at a new expectation level, I would say, for this year and moving forward. It is that now more than ever, you have to be your brand. And what I mean by that is that now you have to show up and really consider, who are we? What is our tone of voice that we want to put out and be known for?
Yeah.
And how do we want to start this conversation? Because it can't be ignored, like we talked about. You can't just sell on there. You have to participate in some form, not just sharing news articles because they may be fake. You don't know the context, but you do have to show up as your brand. We've talked about on here having your tone of voice, having a brand manifesto and how to create one. And I'll share the link again in the comments on how to do that. But this is the time where you have to show up intentional, to have a feeling that you're trying to share with others when you show up. And I'm not saying that you have to just drill in and talk about COVID and Black Lives Matter or diversity. You want to participate in the conversations, but you can do so in a way that's right for your brand. But you first have to identify, who is your brand? What do you want to be known for? What kind of tone you want to have when you're showing up, and add your brand personality more than ever. You're not your product. Your message is bigger than your product. So you have to have, what is our message? What do we want to accomplish from this that's way bigger than just selling something?
Yeah. Okay. I got one more example. Then I'm just going to keep going with Bubba Wallace here, and that is that yesterday, Beats by Dre announced that they signed Bubba Wallace. Okay. So as a spokesperson for their brands, and so that's kind of an example. So there is, selling going on, right? So Beats by Dre is going to be a product there. However, they're doing that, and their wording says, we weren't going to announce this until later, but we're going to do it now. No one should ever be asked to apologize for standing up for what's right. We're proud to welcome Bubba Wallace to Beats by Dre family. So they're showcasing kind of their perspective and getting behind a cause and a person. So that's a relationship oriented, community oriented way of going about being their business, and so they're communicating about that. So I felt like that's a positive example of a brand that's chosen to. Yes, there's marketing involved there. He's going to represent them, but it's choosing who you're going to represent and who's going to represent you, and what does their voice say, and so you're aligning with that voice and saying that you believe in that, and so that's communicating volumes right there.
Absolutely. A couple of things that come to mind, like Frito-Lay had a commercial just on COVID, right? And it wasn't about selling their product, but it was just like, hey, we're here for you, that kind of thing. There was commercials that have been on TV even, where it was like the Be Calm app, where it's just like a few seconds of just being calm, right? Like, you can show up. The key is to show up intentional, to have a feeling about it. Like somebody could respond and know who you are at your core by reading what you have to say. So it could be showing up in a way to make people laugh without being like the rope example, right? Like that is not okay. But showing up to make people smile, sharing good stories of things going on, or advocating. If you have an audience and a platform and an opinion, then use it to advocate too, maybe for something like the example that Mike just shared. It could be to help, solve another issue, but just showing it in a way that's caring above all else, a way to build relationships and really to help people identify who you are without it feeling washed out, if that makes sense, and very muted, because that's also going to turn people off if you feel like you're just saying something that doesn't feel genuine. So show up in a way that's really going to be your brand. Identify your brand. Like ours, like it's been like sharing good stories, right? And really helping people and provide resources, whether that's entertainment with having local bands that are participating online, hosting our own game nights, or things of stories from videos that people have shared and what the Black Lives Matter movement means to them, or how brands are showing up to really change and how you can get involved. Like it could just be you want to share things like that and have good vibes, but just really have a voice. That's one thing you definitely do.
Yeah, that's part of the do's. Yeah. I mean, you have to be your brand, and the do is to how can you be helpful. You can't go wrong by being helpful in that regard. And from a business standpoint, I mean, businesses are need to kind of evaluate and say, maybe we have not been involved enough. And so what do we need to do? What steps do we want to take? So, like I know a big sports fan here. So NBA, is getting ready to try to start up again in Florida and Orlando. And, as one of the ways that they're trying to support in the Black community and talking about allowing players to have messages on the back of their jerseys, and they're also going to have some specific sayings that they on the gym courts as well. So again, they're kind of taking their stand to be positive, to say this is what we support, this is who we are, this is what we're doing to try to be helpful to keep these conversations going, to see change, positive change enacted. And so, I just, I give them kudos for taking some positive action steps this way, finding ways within what they do to engage with what's happening in the U.S. and larger places, around this, and to help that move forward with their influence, but also to articulate this is who we want to be as a brand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that feels genuine. And I think people will be receptive to it because you want to be informed, as we mentioned before. And you also want to communicate that with your team on what the brand stance is first. Everybody should already be involved in that. Also, get them involved in how you can show up and communicate both clear messaging. So like maybe it's even when you're opening, what your hours of operation is going to be, what the new changes are, as it relates to the COVID stuff. And also what's going on in the world, as we talked about, with diversity and showing up for, the Black Lives Matter and what your stance is there in a way that's going to be educated and clearly communicated. Because one thing, and it was an innocent thing, right? It was like one of my team members like, hey, this was when everything first started going on. Let's share, this Martin Luther King quote, maybe for the brands, or they were wanting to post something during the Blackout Tuesday. And it was only because I was doing a ton of research, right? I was going in and just informing myself as much as I could, seeing what was going on. And I realized some of the stuff still felt tone deaf. Like anyone sharing just a Martin Luther King general quote was really kind of looked upon as tone deaf still. like you're just putting something out there to participate, but not really taking into consideration what the real message is, right? And it could be taken out of context, even when you have the best of intentions. So still participate. I was like, here's what I've seen, and that's a wake-up call for me internally, even to say, hey, I need to educate myself more, and also with my team, but then also have some communication channels going with them, because I could have easily just did that for the Now brand and then not communicate that with the team, and they could have maybe shared out a different message on another client page or something. They could have then received some negative repercussions from it, with it not being intentional, only because you didn't take the time out to really hear the conversations that are going on.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's good. That's a good word there. And one simple thing that you said really stood out to me, and that is just making sure, like with COVID and changing of hours and things, just that your platforms online are up to date, right? So I've been, disappointed by some, restaurant, stores, whatever, that type of thing, when when the hour says this and you go there and it's closed, you can't do any pickup or like that, because I was on their website. The website didn't change that, because again, you have to think about your platforms. It might be your website. I mean, you might have to change your Google My Business. I mean, obviously then there's maybe Facebook, Instagram. I mean, you can't just do it in one place.
Yeah. You're like, well, our website was updated. They should have known. No, usually your Google My Business comes up first, especially if you're brick and mortar. And it is super frustrating when you go someplace and they're closed, or the menu's not up to date if you're a restaurant, right? Or, you can't, whatever the answer, you can't perform an action that someone's trying to do. Make sure it's consistent, up to date, and then shared with the team, so everybody does know what's going on, and adjusting those things related to the new normal, if you want to call it that, right? And then also just being timely with it, because something you may have wanted to share and something maybe just happened the day before. Be timely with it. And we actually had this post, like a guide to posting online, right? And it's an acronym, because I love the acronyms. Yes. That you can ask yourself, really, and it still holds true today, before you're going to share anything, right? And post breaks down to, the first one is being personalized, and that goes back to knowing your brand. So not just sharing a quote or something like that, like personalizing it, and making it specific for your audience. So you feel like you're having this conversation with them, which brings us to the O, which make your post open-ended. So asking a question in it, and typically even starting out with that question is good, because then it intrigues somebody to kind of want to come in, and not just holding that question for the end. And then the S in post goes for style. Like, have your own flair to it, where personalized is thinking of your audience and who you're writing for and to. The style is thinking about you, what you want your audience to know about you, and it should feel like you. They should be able to read the post and know exactly, who you are, right? And if they're reading several of your posts. And then the T comes down to timeliness. And that's the one thing, it's like really being in tune and not tone deaf to what's going on around you. So when you're writing, and even if you write ahead, we've had to change it a lot with account management. Typically we do 30 days in advance, but we have to be in tune to what's going on and making sure everything's timely. And that's how you can still participate. Now it's encouraged. It's going to do you good to keep going and participating online in social media. I'm not saying like steer away from it. Do participate, but just know this going in, and you can use that post formula.
No, I like that. Yeah. The personalized is important these days, more so than ever. And open-ended, timely. Wow, just good stuff there. Yeah. So I mean, again, hopefully this is just helpful to take a look at. There's what your business wants to accomplish. There's your audience that you would like to have as your ideal client, and then there's the context in which you find yourselves, both community, national, global, and some of the things going on that need to be taken into account in terms of your communication plan. And I know that we've been advocates here again of, kind of planning your strategy and walking that out. And this is um, a key reminder that, any strategy that has some advanced weeks on it, needs to be ready to be flexible enough to be adjusted on short notice based on changing circumstances. And so you can't just, set it and run it kind of thing, but you need to, continue to plan, but then kind of watch your plan, work your plan, evaluate your plan, tweak your plan along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it really just comes down to being your brand, giving it a personality. Don't just focus on your products. Really focus at who is at the heart of your company. What do you want to be known for? Who is your audience? And then show up and deliver that, and not be afraid of what others, maybe you're posting something, but maybe I'll offend this group or whatever. Granted, be kind in everything that you're sharing, so no one would take offense, but also have a stance on something and support things that your brand truly cares about, because that's who you want to work with. That's who's going to advocate for you. That's who's going to remember you, and that's going to make you a craveable brand versus a cringy brand. So just take this into consideration. Definitely show up, because this is social. It's one thing that hasn't shut down. People are still spending a lot of time here, and it's the future of how everyone wants to communicate. They want to support a brand that means something and that says something about them for supporting them. And you need to give them the reasons why it should be you versus someone else at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, wow, that went fast. I feel like this whole day has. So I tell you, like I said, coming back from vacation, it's been like, oh, what day is it? Where do I work again? Yeah, but hopefully this has been helpful. What I want to know from you is, if you have watched this video, if this does resonate with you, if you have questions, definitely type it in. Like, maybe it's a question about ads, right? Like, how do we keep our ads up to date without it feeling salesy, and all the things we talked about? How can we still sell? We need to grow. We need to make money, or even just resources on things that you can check out. I'd be happy to answer those questions. Mike would as well, I'm sure, and provide those resources to you, or give you some examples of some brands that are really doing an amazing job with relationship marketing during this time. So yeah.
No, good stuff. Good stuff. Hopefully it's been helpful to people, just to cause them to sit back and think about their business again, and their brand communication.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we wish all of you much love and enjoying the summertime here in the United States. Hopefully your brand is doing well and you already are implementing a lot of these relationship marketing tactics. I'd love to know the good that it's been revealed this year as well, for maybe yourself and your brand. Definitely comment below and let us know how it's going for you. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Magnet Marketers every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Bye-bye.